Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I'm going to continue talking about my existing CD collection. So you will recall the last video I talked about my Iron Maiden collection. Now we're up to the letter J in the alphabet, so that's what we're doing. And today's episode, while it is my existing CD collection, it's also doubling up as an episode of American black metal gems. So you'll remember that I did an episode about the American band Summon, the black metal band. That was 2 or 3 years ago, I think. So that's what we're doing today, covering another black metal band from the US, and actually my favorite US black metal band of all time. So without further ado, we'll get into it. The band I'm talking about or band or project I'm talking about is Judas Iscariot. So that name probably needs not much introduction to most people in terms of black metal. Like, of course, you know, as a historical figure and a character in the Bible, he was the betrayer of Christ, but it's also the name of this particular band, or project, I should say. So it's a one-man black metal band from Illinois, USA, and it was created by a guy called Andrew Harris, who went by the pseudonym or stage name of Akhenaten, named after the heretic pharaoh of Egypt. So yes, one guy, the project name is Judas Iscariot, but it was performed by the man or entity known as Akhenaten. And the way I actually found out about this band was in the late 90s, I think it was 1999, when I used to read Worm Gear magazine. So that was a publication that Relapse used to send me. Whenever I ordered from them, they'd send me copies of this black and white rough paper magazine. And that was of course run by none other than Marty Richtonen, otherwise known as Marty Worm these days, you know, from Heavy Metallurgy. He has his own channel. And I remember I used to get this fanzine and I used to just read it like John Travolta in Pulp Fiction, you know, on meal breaks at work or when I was eating lunch at home, like just because it contained really cool interviews and reviews. But anyway, yeah, I saw Judas Iscariot in this particular publication, and what caught my attention was it was an interview with Marty, and just where Akhenaten was talking about the music, like the influences and styles, and I thought, I've got to check this out based on what he said. And in addition to that, he was making some very sort of grand, nihilistic, anti-religious statements. So it was just, you know, it left an impact on me. So I checked it out eventually, I think in 2000. Yeah, it was the first time I bought a Judas Iscariot album, and then I've just been a fan ever since. So long story short, Judas Iscariot is my favorite black metal, US black metal band or project of all time. And if you're not familiar, I think just to give you some sort of grounding reference, the bands that he's most influenced by musically, I would have to say, are Dark Throne, especially the Transylvanian Hunger album, you know, that style of really sort of bleak, melancholic, depressive riffing, yeah, and also Burzum, so like the more sort of lonely, bleak, melancholic black metal with the trancey ambience and some electronic aspects. So if you're a fan of Dark Throne and Burzum, you will probably like Judas Iscariot as well. So enough of the preamble, we will get into it. So Judas Iscariot existed from, when was it? 1992 to 2002, so it's no longer active. And in that time, Akhenaten or Judas Iscariot released, I think, 6 full-length albums and loads of splits and EPs. I don't have any of the splits or EPs, just the albums. I have 5 of the albums, and the only one I don't own is the last one, To Embrace the Corpse's Bleeding, but I will talk about that at the end. So just get the computer here. Yeah, so what we're going to do is just go through these albums in chronological order. Because I don't have all albums, I cannot do a ranking, but I can just say this, that I feel that with each of Judas Iscariot's albums, they got better and better. So that's a pretty straightforward ranking. But all right, so we will go into the first CD then, the first album I'm going to talk about. This was the first release by Judas Iscariot. This is Judas Iscariot with The Cold Earth Slept Below. Okay, so there's a picture of Akhenaten on the back in corpse paint and with the gauntlet. So yes, this is very sort of in the vein of Dark Throne, especially Transylvanian Hunger, but I'm not sure if I mentioned this, I still feel that Judas Iscariot, despite being influenced by those bands, put his own spin and own sound on the music, so it's not just like a carbon copy. But I think on this album, this is where he was just, you know, developing and finding that style, like finding his feet, so it is very much in the vein of Dark Throne. And the production is very raw, it's almost muffled a bit, and yes, because it's a one-man band, a one-man show, like Burzum, The drumming isn't perfect all the time either. Sometimes it sounds a bit out of time or frantic, but that just adds to the overall deliberately garagey sound, and it creates that bleak sort of snowstorm atmosphere. But yes, very good starting album. Like, this is sort of like a mission statement, I suppose, saying this is what the band is about and what he sounded like. But yeah, really good 9 tracks on this one. As I said, I think each album got better and better, so this is my least favorite, but it still is a very good album. Yeah, so of the 9 tracks, it's quite very much in the vein of Dark Throne most of the time, but there are a variety of tempos. Like the second track, Wrath, that's only like 20 seconds or something, and it's furiously fast with blistering blast beats, but it's just so aggressive. But then there's some which are very much like straightforward Dark Throne. And I think in terms of just the riffs, in terms of the catchiness, my favorite tracks on this are track 3, which is entitled Babylon, track 4 entitled The Cold Earth Slept Below, so that's the title track, that's largely an instrumental, and also track 8, which is entitled Fidelity. Yeah, but the whole album is a good listen. There are, I will just say about this album, the last track entitled Nietzsche, named after the nihilistic philosopher, which influenced this band a lot. I find that song is a bit boring and drags its feet, but aside from that, the album is a very good overall listen. So yeah, if you like early Dark Throne, especially Transylvanian Hunger era, definitely check this out. And it's got that garagey sound to match. I like that photo here. And here, yeah, just some liner notes. And what's he talking? Oh yeah, there's a passage here, and it says inside, "Hail nihilism, hail darkness, hail true fucking metal. Judas Iscariot is Akhenaten." Oh yeah, and there's a picture of him on the back there where he gives a bit of a mission statement of what the band's about. Like, it starts with, "I am nihilist by philosophy." Yeah, and then towards the end, "Behold a new dark age," so you get the point here. So yeah, very good debut album. There's a picture of Akhenaten again. Yep, so it is a good starting point, but it's not my favorite. And as I said, the albums get better and better. But yeah, good start. This is Judas Iscariot with The Cold Earth Slept Below. Okay, now we get into the next album in chronological order. So this is Judas Iscariot with Thy Dying Light. So the second album. I actually bought this. It was so weird when I was backpacking in Germany, year 2000. So after I had heard about this band, this was the second album I bought, I think. But there was just this random stall in Berlin where they had secondhand metal CDs. I bought this one as well as Nocturnal Breed and Obituary. Anyway, that's random, but this is one of my favorite Judas Iscariot albums. So first of all, in comparison to The Cold Earth Slept Below, this album has better production, better sound, and just faster and more accomplished playing. So when I say better sound, it's still not polished, it's quite raw, but it's not as muffled as this one. So it just has more bite and sharpness in the production, but definitely still sounding raw and bleak. So yeah, again, this album is very much in the vein of Transylvanian Hunger, but there are some Burzum influences creeping in as well. I will also say this, on this album, the drumming improved massively. So the music sounds, just more condensed, like everything's perfectly in time, and a bit more urgent, so it's faster. Like, this one was a bit languid, but this one, it gets more intense, but there's also slower tracks as well. And he has these really wonderful long titles for this album. So yeah, I will get into that in a moment, but yeah, this is a really good starting point. So I would say, if you haven't heard Judas Iscariot before, this could be a good starting album for you. Nice artwork on the front. And my favorite tracks on this, there's 9 altogether, they're all really good. The following track 2, which is entitled His Eternal Life Like a Dream Was Obliterated. Just a very melancholic, bleak sounding riff in that song, which is quite slow. Fantastic vocals, which, by the way, I forgot to mention, the vocals are like typical raspy black metal vocals, but sometimes he sounds a bit like Abath as well, that sort of like low-pitched drone, but maybe not as monotonous as Abath. But it's like somewhere between Dark Throne, like Nocturno Culto, and Abath for the vocals there. Yeah, but track 2 has just got such a good riff, and it's very hypnotic and catchy. Then it speeds up with these bleak riffs, it's brilliant. The other track I really like is track 3, entitled Helpless It Lay Like a Worm in His Frozen Track. Like the drumming on that is really good. It's got a lot of like open splash hi-hat, but like the rhythm is again mid-paced and upbeat and catchy, which is fantastic. Good riffs as always. And so my other favorite tracks on this are track 6, entitled Writhing Upon the Wind of Mystic Philosophy and Dreams. Also track 8, entitled Thy Dying Light and the Desolate Darkness. Again, that is like a hypnotic instrumental, so kind of influenced by Burzum again, I think. And then track 9, entitled Arise My Lord of Infernal Wisdom, which is just like these really bestial shrieked vocals, like a venomous statement of hatred or something to complete the album. But yeah, very epic. And as I said, on this album, you see the influence of Burzum creeping in the sense that a lot of the songs are mid-paced and a lot of the songs are trancey and hypnotic with a lot of repetition, but I don't think that's a bad thing. It creates that overall trance-like effect of black metal melancholy. But yeah, really good stuff. There's the back, the long titles. Yeah, I think track 6 has the longest one. And yeah, so there's the inlay there. And what's this? Oh yeah, again, he's talking about, you know, the philosophy and the beliefs behind Judas Iscariot as a project. Yeah, there we go. And then a picture of Akhenaten here in corpse paint. That's pretty iconic, I have to say. And there's the disc itself. And more pictures on the inlay. So it is an excellent album and I do recommend it. This is Judas Iscariot with Thy Dying Light. Okay, up next, we come to the next album, which was an improvement once again, I think. This is Judas Iscariot with Of Great Eternity, which came out the following year, I think. So nice mural picture of the back. Is that Christ at Via Dolorosa or his trial? Probably. Yeah, considering the band is called Judas Iscariot, that makes sense. But yeah, again, this album, it's just more of the same thing, but it does get better. Again, the Burzum influence becomes even stronger and more apparent on this album, although at the same time, there's still those bleak, hypnotic, Dark Throne-esque riffs in the vein of Transylvanian Hunger. But yeah, really good, like a lot of mid-pace sections in this one. Like I really like the first track entitled The Heavens Drop with Human Gore. It's got some fast melancholic riffs, but when it breaks down into that mid-pace one and you hear him say gaze into the moon, just very catchy and atmospheric. Also track 2 entitled I Filled With Woes the Passing Wind. That's actually an instrumental, but it sounds very much in the vein of Burzum again, you know, with the hypnotic riffs. And it's just guitars by themselves, that's it, but very atmospheric. Then tracks 3 and 4 get like faster and more frantic, and I really like track 4 for the Last Judgment Draweth Nigh, like blistering riff at the start of that song, and you hear him shriek, prepare for war, and it just makes you feel like ripping trees from the ground. But undoubtedly, my favorite track on this album is track 5, which is entitled Calls to Heaven for Human Blood. That's because it's got a very Burzum-esque section in it, where it's got that kind of upbeat Burzum rhythm, like, but you know, just so catchy, really catchy riff. And that song, that breakdown section in that song reminds me very much of the Burzum song Det som en gang var from Havis Lucet tar oss, which is probably my favorite Burzum song of all time. So no wonder I like this one so much, which is entitled Calls to Heaven for Human Blood. And it closes with Our Sons Shall Rule the Empire of the Sea, fantastic title. And that's, again, a bit similar to track 5 as well. So, yep, once again, no complaints. Again, the sound is even clearer on this one compared to the predecessor, Thy Dying Light. So it's not as hoarse sounding, but really, really good. And again, he's improved his drumming skills as well. So I think, you know, obviously, when you're a multi-instrumentalist, it's hard to be really good at everything, but I think with continued practice, his drumming got even better on this album. Yep, so nice colored painting as the cover art here. And some more statements. I'm not going to waste everyone's time reading those, but, you know, again, they talk about the philosophy and the beliefs behind the band and a few nihilistic statements. By the way, this band is not political at all. It's just based on nihilistic philosophy. And picture of Akhenaten there. That's a pretty cool shot, actually. So this mural painting and then Akhenaten looking either way at it. And there's the disc itself. Yep, so another good album and a step further into the realms of quality music. This is Judas Iscariot with Of Great Eternity. Okay, so now, as I said, in my opinion, the albums just get better and better. This is my second favorite. Well, the next two, I can't decide which is my favorite, but we'll get into that in a moment. But I will say this, in the year 2000, this was the very first Judas Iscariot album that I bought. This is Judas Iscariot with Distant in Solitary Night. So very cool, bleak painting. I think that's taken from a traditional painting, so it wasn't done specially for this album. And here on this album we have 7 brilliant tracks. Once again, the sound quality has improved, so it's even better. It's still very much in the vein of Dark Throne's Transylvanian Hunger with those, bleak styled riffs, which obviously went on to influence the DSBM genre, even though Judas Iscariot is not that. It's just purest old school black metal in the vein of second Norwegian wave of black metal. But yeah, so the drumming has a lot more bite on this album. The guitar tone is excellent. You can really hear the melodies on this album. It's very piercing, and yeah, a lot of melody, actually, more than any of the previous albums, I would say. So like the opening track, The Wind Stands Silent, it's just got this immediately hypnotic melodic riff which sticks in your head with very fast, frantic drumming. I also really like the second track, Where the Winter Beats Incessant. That's a very slow track, generally speaking. And initially, when I was younger, I didn't like it because I thought it was a bit boring, but as you get older, you appreciate slower music, and that track is in fact very hypnotic, and you hear certain parts of it where he really slows down, and it just, you can hear the bass and everything perfectly. Another good thing about this band, the bass is audible. But yeah, so it's generally quite mid-paced to slow, then it goes to an even slower section and then comes back, but it's very catchy. Also, the track 3, entitled The Black Clouds Roll Under the Parapet of the Sky. Brilliant riff in that, just so melodic and hooky straight away, and you're singing along to that. It's very fast, and again, there's a mid-paced breakdown in the middle of the song, and the vocals and the lyrics really stand out on that song. And that's the thing, while he sings in that raspy black metal style, you can often make out what he's saying, which is good. I think, in general, it's good to hear what the singer's actually saying in a song. So yeah, first 3 tracks are great. Then we get to track 4, which is, it's probably my favorite black metal instrumental of all time. That's entitled The Clear Moon and the Glory of the Darkness. Absolutely brilliant track. Again, just slow with these haunting, hypnotic riffs and guitars and everything, but it slowly builds and builds in its dramatic sound, and there are icy keyboards employed on this track, and they just sound so piercing and melodic, and there's this distant humming in the background as well, or it sounds like that anyway. But yeah, so this track, the Clear Moon and the Glory of the Darkness, it reminds me very much of Burzum, like the instrumental Tomhet, on Hvislu et ta os, but again, with its own unique sound, so he's not just carbon copying Burzum. But yeah, and then it just builds up to the climax, and it's absolutely brilliant. And then it concludes with this really angry, evil sounding shrieking. I'm not sure if he's actually saying words there or not, but it sounds like he may be. So I don't know if I can call this track an instrumental. It's mostly instrumental until that shrieking outburst at the end. But nevertheless, an absolutely brilliant track. So go and listen to it. The Clear Moon and the Glory of the Darkness. Fantastic track. And then it goes back into the really fast, blistering stuff with To the Black Tower of Victory and In the Bliss of the Eternal Valleys of Hate. And then it concludes with the absolutely magnificent, grandiose track entitled Portions of Eternity Too Great for the Eye of Man. Now this one, it's primarily a keyboards and some guitars in that track, but it's just Akhenaten speaking very solemnly, with these certain statements, which actually come from William Blake's Marriage of Heaven and Hell. So in addition to Nietzsche, his philosophy was very inspired by William Blake as well. So, and when you listen to that song, the words he's speaking, you'll realize they're the same as the ones used in the opening track for Ulver's William Blake's Marriage of Heaven and Hell. Like Rintrah roars and shakes his fire in the burdened air. Yep, so you actually hear that. But that song, just with the keyboards, it sounds so mysterious, atmospheric, dark and otherworldly. It really takes you on a journey. It's like a soundscape. And the way he narrates the words, it leaves an indelible impact on me anyway. So it's quite interesting. For me, my favorite tracks on the album are kind of the ones that aren't straight ahead black metal, like The Clear Moon and the Glory of the Darkness, which is an atmospheric keyboard instrumental, and then Portions of Eternity, Too Great for the Eye of Man, which is like a spoken word track with keyboards, but absolutely brilliant. My other favorite tracks, as mentioned, would be probably The Black Clouds Roll Under the Parapet of the Sky and Where the Winter Beats Incessant, but all tracks excellent. So I strongly recommend this one. So in addition to the cover, yep, you've got some words on the inside. And again, this is talking about his visions and philosophy again. So he seems to do that in every album, but it's expressed differently and he builds on it. Yep, so there's the picture of Akhenaten there, kind of blurred. And I like this one too. So the Reaper standing on the pile of corpses. Distant in solitary night, 7 hymns to the triumph of evil. Indeed. And the disc design is pretty cool as well. Yep, so as I said, this was the first one I ever heard, and it's a brilliant album. Strongly recommend it. Judas Iscariot with Distant in Solitary Night. And now coming to the last one for today. It wasn't his last album. This is actually his second last album. But as I said, I don't own the last one. And just getting this booklet back in. Okay, and then we come to the 5th full-length album, which is Judas Iscariot with Heaven in Flames. Yeah, so there's a picture of Akhenaten there. Now, this one, you might recall in Metal Mickey's 1, 2, 3 albums challenge, I said for number 5, like this was the band where the 5th album is my favorite. Yes, that's contentious because it's very close between these two, except what makes this album better, I would say, is the fact that the songs are just more memorable. Like on this particular album, you can remember every song clearly, like the riffs, the way the song goes. So it shows that he just learned to write more memorable music without compromising his extreme musical or philosophical principles. So absolutely a gem of an album. The only problem with this album though, and I'm sure a lot of people agree with me, is the production is very thin. I think that was done deliberately, but it's just yeah, it's just not as meaty as the riffs in some of the earlier albums. But it doesn't matter because the music is very good anyway. On this album, he uses a lot of keyboards, and the drumming is very sort of, it doesn't have a pang sound exactly, but it's very bouncy, you know, like the snare hit and everything. And there's no reverb on the vocals, so the vocals sound very sort of like up close and in your face, like he's just speaking the words to you up close, but still really good vocals, like again, sort of in the vein of Nocturno Culto / Abbott a bit. But yeah, it opens up with An Eternal Kingdom of Fire, which is just so melancholy. It's absolutely brilliant. And then they have some soaring keyboards in the middle and like slow breakdown. It sounds so good. Then track 2, Gaze Upon Heaven in Flames, fast and furious, like with just this brilliant, memorable, melodic, but fierce riff in that song. And the vocals and the lyrics sound so angry and pissed off. It's fantastic. And they even have some like, you know, sliding down the fretboard, but it's like, but it just adds to the rage of that song, which is really good. Then track 3, entitled Eternal Bliss, Eternal Death. That's a slow track, but the riffs and the vocals are so memorable again. Then Before a Circle of Darkness is very good as well. Track 5 is entitled From Hateful Visions. Again, that's quite Berserm-esque because it's got that mid-pace 4/4 kind of rhythm. And quite sort of, not happy sounding, but like just a different color to that song, like the riff sounding, but it's kind of like still mournful and melancholic, but it's really good. And then there's one more Fast and Furious track, Spill the Blood of the Lamb, which is really good, before the concluding track, which is entitled An Ancient Starry Sky. Again, that's an instrumental, very sort of hypnotic with the guitars, hypnotic and trancey and haunting. And then the part I love about that song is the riffs building, and then all of a sudden these icy keyboards burst out of nowhere. It's like, din din, and it's just so dramatic. So like the first time you hear it, it shocks you. And I think actually one time I was like having a nap when I was listening to it, and when the keyboards came, it like jolted me, woke me up because it sounded so scary, but like just really haunting, icy stuff. So excellent. So yes, I talked about all tracks on the album, so I said they're all good, except my favorites on these are probably 5 of them. So An Eternal Kingdom of Fire, Gaze Upon Heaven in Flames, Eternal Bliss, Eternal Death, From Hateful Visions, and An Ancient Starry Sky. But the other 2 tracks, Before a Circle of Darkness and Spill the Blood of the Lamb, are still very good. But yes, undoubtedly the most memorable Judas Iscariot album. So there's Akhenaten with some candles on the back and a Veles shirt. And this picture is not very clear, but I think it's depicting just that, Heaven in Flames. And booklet again, picture of the forest. A statement from Nietzsche again, so big influence for Akhenaten. And there's the disc, and I'll show you the inlay for this one because it's pretty cool. It's a digipack, and this is a picture of Akhenaten performing live. So generally speaking, this was a one-man band, a one-man show, but towards the end of his career, he did perform some live shows in the US with session musicians. Yeah, so that's Judas Iscariot with Heaven in Flames, undoubtedly my favorite. So, like I said, it's very close between these 2, but I think they're in ascending order. So in the chronological order, they get better and better. Yeah, Judas Iscariot, Heaven in Flames. And then, of course, after this album, he released another full-length entitled To Embrace the Corpse's Bleeding, which is an absolutely brilliant album. I just don't own it in original format. I do have a burned copy and I want to get it because that's a really interesting album, maybe his best. It could be, I haven't heard it enough, but he's sort of combining the Norwegian and Swedish sounds on that album, where it's got the melancholy and bleakness of Dark Throne's Transylvanian Hunger, but with the brutality and precision and good production of Swedish bands like Marduk and Dark Funeral. So To Embrace the Corpse's Bleeding is a fantastic album. I definitely recommend it. I would like to buy it too. So yeah, that's my Judas Iscariot collection, guys. This project disbanded, well, not disbanded, but because he was only one person, it ended in 2002. For the last few years of the project, he went to live in Germany when he was still active with the band, but after it disbanded, he moved back to the States. And from what I read on Wikipedia, I think he now lives in Canada. But yeah, the project stopped in 2002. So yeah, Judas Iscariot is definitely an American black metal gem. Like when people think of the most classic or legendary band from US, what do people say? Maybe they say Profanatic or Absu, even though Absu has a kind of thrashy influence. But I know Judas Iscariot was from the mid-period, but for me, undoubtedly my favorite US black metal project, although it's now defunct, is Judas Iscariot. And if you like Burzum and early Dark Throne, you definitely must check it out. So anyway, I'll conclude there, guys. What do you think about Judas Iscariot? Are you familiar with the project? What's your favorite album by him? Let's get some discussion going. So yeah, now in the next video, I'm going to go back to heavy metal vinyl to keep it a bit diverse, because the last one I did was heavy metal, now black metal, so back to heavy metal. But yeah, I just want to change it up with the videos. And on that note, I would also like to say, since the last video I did with Iron Maiden, my Iron Maiden collection, I got a few new subscribers. So thank you very much, everyone who's subscribed recently, and welcome. And of course, thank you to all of you who have been subscribed for however long and continue to remain so. So yes, I hope you continue to watch. Thanks as always for your support of the channel, and I'll be back again soon. See you later. Cheers.